Whether your site is a dynamic site like a WordPress site or a single page site with lots of images and videos on it, the time that it takes for your website to load in your visitor's browser is very important for at least a couple of reasons. One, if it takes longer than just a few seconds for your site to load, then you take the risk of your visitor quickly moving on to the next shiny object or cat video instead of becoming your next customer or lead. Another and somewhat related reason for a fast-loading website is that Google prefers fast instead of slow. Matt Cutts, who is a software engineer at Google, says that page load time is one of the factoring elements of search rankings. Now that was back in 2010, and just lately, Google has, or will very soon, will add the same site speed penalties to mobile websites. So, in addition to keeping your visitor happy with a fast loading page, you will also keep Google happy, and they will in turn reward you with better rankings for your search engine results, which will hopefully reward you with more visitors that you will then hopefully convert to customers or leads. So whether or not you're a fan of Google and all the slaps and pandas and other animals that Google throws at us webmasters, it is in your business's best interest to strive to have your website load as fast as it possibly can and to keep it that way. So when it comes to your website, speed is a good thing. Thanks for watching, and you have a great day. From time to time, you should test your website load time using an online tool of your preference. Now, there is no shortage of speed testing tools to choose from either. A quick Google search reveals over 200 million results for the phrase website speed test, so there's no excuse for you not to do it. Now, for me, I use one of a couple of tools, and both are free, as is most of the tools you're going to find online. The one I prefer is from Google themselves, and it's their page speed tool. You can take a quick look at that right here, and it's called Page Speed Tools. You can find it at developers.google.com/speed/pagespeed. Now, there's a whole bunch of goodies on here you can play with, but the main thing would be going to analyze your site online, put in the URL of the page you want to test right here, click on Analyze, and bing, bang, boom, it's done. Another tool is from Yahoo developers, and it's called YSlow, and it's an add-on that you can put on to, I believe, just about every browser except Internet Explorer. They've got an add-on for Chrome, that's this little guy right up here. They've got another add-on for Firefox, and there's also one for Safari and Opera. But if you do not want to go through the hassle or potential browser slowdown of adding additional extensions or add-ons or plugins to your browser, then what you can do is go to a site called GTmetrix, and that's at gtmetrix.com, and pretty much the same thing. You put in the URL of the page you want to test here, and then it will go ahead and give you the speed results from both Google PageSpeed and the YSlow application. So you get the best of both worlds all at one place. So let's go ahead and do that now. Let's go on back to my test site here. Let's grab that URL. Come on back here to gtmetrix.com and paste that in there, and then click on Go. It'll go through and analyze the site. And depending upon how big your site is, will depend on how long this will take. Usually not very long, even at the biggest sites. And here we are. It gives you the summary of the page speed grade and the summary of the YSlow grade. And in both cases, I'm getting an A. Now, this should not be looked at as a typical grade. It should be one that you should strive for. But I want to tell you, though, that the site that I tested is a dummy site. There's really not a whole lot of content on there, and it's on a pretty darn good server as well. And just taking a quick look down the line here, it gives you a breakdown of the various elements that are tested and the scores that were presented for that particular element with page speed, YSlow, and you get the timeline and history. Now, with both the page speed and YSlow breakdown, if you click on each one of these links here, it'll give you a little bit more information regarding the areas that need improvement. And that's going to bring us to the end of this video on website speed test tools. Thanks for watching, and you have a great day. You should test the load times of your websites often, especially if you are regularly adding content, plugins, or testing new themes. Many tools you can use to run these load speed tests are free. One such tool is called YSlow. This video will give you a tour of YSlow and cover some of the major components that will help you get the most out of your site speed testing with this free tool. YSlow is from the development department of Yahoo. It's an add-on or plugin for many of the top browsers except Internet Explorer. Opera, Safari, Chrome, and Firefox. Initially, YSlow was developed for a Firefox developers plugin called Firebug. Now let's head on over to my Firefox and Chrome browsers and have a look. Now you can get the add-on or plugin installed on your browser one of a couple of different ways. I'm going to show you what I consider to be the easiest way, and that is to head on over to yslow.org. Now depending upon the browser you want to install it on, would depend on which one of these guys down here you want to pick. If you are a Firefox user, frankly, I would suggest getting Firefox, if nothing else, for this particular test. But if you're more of a Chrome or Opera or Safari person, then there you go. You just simply click on that particular link, and it will take you through the instructions on installing YSlow for that particular browser. Let's come on back here. Now, I've already got the YSlow plugin or extension added to my Chrome browser. That's one we're looking at now. And over here on my Firefox browser, it's part of the Firebug plugin. So for here, you'd want to first install Firebug. It's installed pretty much the same way. You would go to Tools, go to Add-ons, do a search for Firebug, install it, and then come on over to yslow.org, click on Firefox, and then install or add the YSlow plugin. And at this point, I know it does say add to Firefox, but in actuality, you're adding it to the Firebug plugin that has already been added to your Firefox browser. Let's come on back here. Let's go ahead and explain a little bit about the YSlow tool. See, YSlow has developed 23 different testable rules. Actually, there's like 34 that they found, but of those, only 23 are actually testable that are related to the optimum load time of a web page. And whenever you run the YSlow test on your particular web page, it compares what you have to the optimum way things should be, according to them anyway, and gives you a score based on the results of that test. For example, if we come on over to my site here, and again, I'm on Firefox, and that is important too because the results that I found on Chrome differs from every other test run on the other browsers. So I prefer not to use Chrome for my YSlow operations. But if you're a diehard Chrome fan, you do have that option. But just be aware that the test results might be a little bit off. Okay, that said, I'm on Firefox and I'm on my site here. Come on up to the Firebug plugin up top here. Click on that and it opens up. Actually, by default, it's going to open up and look something like this. But the YSlow plugin or add-on to the Firebug plugin is over here close to the far right end. So you just click on that, come on down here, and you have the option to check that box to auto-run YSlow each time this web page is loaded. That's going to be a little bit more of a load on my server than what I want, and frankly, it's not necessary. To run the test, you simply click on Run Test. Another thing I want to point out too is that you've got these 4 tabs here: Home, Grade, Components, Stats, and Tools. You do not have the Tools option in the Chrome browser. Another reason not to use Chrome for this test. Another thing is that by default, you're going to be starting off on the rule set for YSlow v2. Rule set are those 23 testable rules. If we come on back here just for a second, scroll on down this page here, this gives you a list of those 23 testable rules. And if you click on each one of these, it'll take you to that particular part of the YSlow page that explains in detail what they're talking about for that particular rule. Let's head on back to our test here. And unless your website is like Huffington Post or CBS or something like that on a large scale, then really all you need is the rule set for a small site or blog. Now you can come in here and edit that and even create your own, because these are the default boxes that are checked, or the rules that are checked for the small site or blog, for the V1 Classic, or the full-blown YSlow. This one here has 23 of the 23 rules checked, Classic 13 of the 23, and the small site 15 of the 23. And if you want a new set or a customized set, maybe you want to run a set for every site that you have because every site that you have is created differently, then you have that ability. Click on New Set, it blanks them all out, check the ones that you want, and then come on down here a little bit more, save rule set as, give it a name, bada bing, bada boom, there you go. You have a new rule set over here to the right that will also show up here on this drop down. So I just want to make sure that all those boxes are checked for our small site or blog rule set. And we will now come on back over to our home, click on Run Test. And here it gives me an overall performance score of 88, which isn't too bad. But the more important part of this test is that it tells you here the areas that can use some improvement. And you can click on the links here It'll open up over here, give you a bit more of an explanation of what part of that particular rule needs to be improved upon. And down at the bottom, gives you a little link where you can read more about that particular rule set and what they suggest you can do to get it fixed. And if this is not totally clear to you, then let's get on out of here. Over here to the far right, up top, under Help, we can go to the YSlow community. It's basically a YSlow forum, and you can do a search here for that particular rule set, and I think that was gzip or compression. And chances are, since this group, this Yahoo group, has been around since 2007, there's a pretty good chance that your question has already been answered. If not, just sign into your Yahoo account, and if you don't have one, it doesn't cost anything to get one. Just go ahead and log in, ask your question, and then just wait a little while until your answer is provided. Now let's go ahead and do the same thing on the Chrome browser. Come on over to the same site. Come on up here. Now, whenever you install the YSlow plugin on a Chrome browser, you're going to get this little icon up here in the top right area. Just click on that. Squeeze this down so it shows up in the video here. As you can see here, this checkbox is something totally different than it was on Firefox. And again, you don't have the tools option up here, but everything else is pretty much the same. Let's go ahead and run this test. I think this test on the Firefox ran up with a 88 score. This one's a little more lenient. It gives me a 92. It gives me an A, where I believe on Firefox it was a B, and it's still set for the same rule set as it was on Firefox. Now, through my test, this same site on Opera and Safari provided exactly the same results as it did with Firefox. So the only one out of those 4 browsers that were tested that were different was the Chrome browser. So again, my money would not be on using Chrome for using the YSlow speed testing tool. And that's going to bring us to the end of this video on the YSlow site speed testing tool. Thanks for watching, and you have a great day. There are many online tools that can test the load time of your web pages. This video will show you one of these tools and how to put it to use. This tool is called Google PageSpeed Insights. Google PageSpeed comes in 2 parts. One part, the one this video will cover, is to analyze your web page speed and report to you the results along with suggestions on how to optimize those results. The other part, the PageSpeed service, is a service that will actually automate the optimization process of your web pages to meet the Google's web performance best practices. Google PageSpeed Analysis is a free tool that you can use either online or add it as a plugin or add-on to your Firefox or Chrome browsers, and I'll demonstrate that for you here in just a second. The online tool is actually the best because any updates that Google does to PageSpeed is first done to the online tool, and then later the browser plugins are updated. So for the latest and greatest, you might consider just sticking to the online tool. Now, the overall goal of optimizing your web pages, no matter what tools you're going to use, is to minimize the file size and to minimize the number of times that it takes your site to make a request to your site server, or GET as it's also called. What I mean by that is every URL on your site will require a request to your server for the contents of that URL to display. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Let's head on over to one of my demonstration sites here and check out the page source or the code that makes up this site. I'm going to right click, then left click on View Page Source. This gives us all the guts of the page there. And you see each one of these URLs here. In order to make that page load, to make it look the way that it does, every time that somebody opens up that URL, each one of these guys are sent off to the server where they're hosted at and are requesting, hey, bring this information back here to this guy's browser so we can make this web page work properly. So ideally, you would have, and it's impossible, but you would have one URL on the page source and all this other stuff would be in one line. That being a very small file and one GET or one request. Now that's never going to happen because that would just be a dorky looking web page. But that's what you're shooting for, to have the minimum number of requests and the smallest file size you can get overall. That includes images, videos, text, and everything. Let's go ahead and close this out here. Now, every time that your site makes a request to your server, it's also using bandwidth, which in some hosting packages, you are given a certain amount per month before additional charges begin. Even the unlimited bandwidth hosts have what's called fair use policies, which are usually not part of the advertising, by the way. So yeah, I know, It's hard to believe that a company would actually say one thing but mean something else. Okay, end of the commentary. When you have reached what is deemed as the limits of that fair use policy, your site can then be throttled back to a standstill or in some cases even be shut down. But my point here is that by reducing the number of requests to your server, you are also minimizing the bandwidth your site is using. So this goal is going to do a few things for you. Number one, it's going to speed up your web pages in your visitor's browser, and that's going to make them happy and much more closer to being a lead or a customer of yours. Number two, since Google uses the speed that your web pages load as part of their ranking process of its search results, you stand a far better chance of landing on page one of those search results, which will in turn bring you more free traffic and more of those potentially paying customers. And number three, reduce your overall bandwidth usage, which can save you money. Okay, now that we've touched on the what and the why of using Google's PageSpeed Insights tool, let's get to the how. Now right now I'm on my Chrome browser, and if we head on over to developers.google.com/speed, that's going to bring us to the PageSpeed page, and on this page is quite a few items related to the PageSpeed service. The one we're going to be dealing with here or diving more into is the PageSpeed Insights. One thing I want to point out, if you scroll down close to the bottom here, this link here will take you to the Performance Best Practices, which is basically a set of rules that Google uses to determine the optimum page speed of a particular website or web page. And that's what these guys are testing here under the PageSpeed Insights. Let's go ahead and click on this guy here. Oh, and by the way, while I'm here on this page, over here on the left, if you click on Community, and then click on PageSpeed Insights here under the group name, this takes you to kind of like a forum or a Google group of page insights. So any questions that you have that you just can't find the answer to by maybe using the Google search tool, head on over here, sign in if you haven't already, and either do a search here for your answer or go ahead and post your question in here, and in no time at all you're going to get results. So this is definitely a page you might want to be bookmarking. Okay, so that's that. Come on back here, and click on Analyze with PageSpeed Insights. And right here is the online tool I was referring to, and I'll show you the add-on or the plugin section here in just a second. Let's go ahead and test my site. Copy the URL, paste it right in here, click on Analyze, and it's going to do a couple of things for us here. And this is not done with the plugin. So again, another reason behind using the online tool versus the plugin or the add-on or extension, whatever you want to call it. But it gives you a test for both a mobile version of your site or how your site looks on a mobile device, as well as how it will test or look on a desktop. And of course, the higher the number, the better your site is ranking. And you want to get the highest number possible, that being 100. But over here under the suggestion summary, you've got three colors, red, yellow, and green. The red is the items that you really want to pay attention to and try to fix as soon as possible. The yellow, it's okay. If you've got time and it's not that big of a deal, go ahead and put some effort into fixing it. And then the greens, hey, you got those perfect. Don't worry about those. And if you scroll down to the bottom here, you got the little color code that explains pretty much what I just told you. But under each one of these items is a link to learn more about that particular item. Gives you a little description here. Your page has 2 blocking script resources and 3 blocking CSS resources. What the heck does that mean? Click on Learn More. And each one of these links here will take you to a page that will explain more in detail about that particular element and how you can better optimize that element, which overall will better optimize your entire page. And you can see they're going to be a little bit different for the mobile versus the desktop. So that's the online tool. Let's go ahead and head over to my Firefox browser and check out the plugin version of this. And on the same page, that's the developers.google.com/speed. The link over here called Analyze with Chrome and Firefox, just click on that link. And you've got the 2 options here, and as it says right here, the online version is pretty much a better bet. But if you want, you can install the Firefox extension, or if you're on the Chrome browser, you can do that as well here. Let's go ahead and install the Firefox extension. And what this does actually is it installs an extension to the Firebug web development tool. So technically you have to have the Firebug web development tool already installed, which I do. And let's go ahead and restart now. And you can get to the Firebug/PageSpeed extension a couple of ways. Mine is right up here in the top right corner. I can just click on that and it opens it up to the page speed tab of the Firebug tool. All this here is part of the Firebug tool. Or, let me go ahead and close this out here. Go to the page that you want to test, and anywhere on the page, just right click. Okay, you can't see. Let's go up here and right click. Left click on Inspect Element with Firebug. And then right up here, you've got the various tabs. This is the Firebug toolbar. Just click on Page Speed, and here we are. And here you've got some resources. You've got the help. You can analyze either the entire page or certain elements of the page, and you've got some additional information down here. Let's go ahead and click on Analyze Performance just to kind of give you a comparison between this one and the online tool. As you can see, there's nothing on here, currently anyway, about the mobile device. This is all just desktop versions. But like the online tool, each one of these are links that you can click on for additional information related to that particular item. And in most cases, recommendations on what you can do to better optimize that item. And that's a rundown on the PageSpeed Insights tool and a little bit of an overview of other elements of the PageSpeed service. And that's going to bring us to the end of this video. Thanks for watching, and you have a great day. A huge non-optimized image can really slow your web page load time, and that's not a good thing. This video will cover some tips, tricks, and techniques on optimizing the images on your WordPress site. Ideally, you should optimize your images before uploading them to your WordPress site, but if you have an existing site with a whole bunch of images, it's not too late to optimize those images as well. First, I want to cover how to optimize the images off-site before you actually add them to your media section. Then we're going to see just how easy it is to optimize your site's current images. Now, when optimizing images, there are two things to think about: the file size and the image dimensions. The file size can usually be reduced by an image editing program like Photoshop or any number of other online free tools like, for example, Dynamic Drive. You can just do a Google search for image optimizers like I've done here, and you'll see at the time of this recording anyway, there's a tad bit over 3 million results. So there's no shortage of image optimizers, most of which are going to be free. Let me demonstrate the use of one of these, this guy right here, the Dynamic Drive Image Optimizer, by heading over to dynamicdrive.com. You can see they got a ton of tools here. The one we're going to be looking at is this guy right here, Image Optimizer. Let's click on that. And you have a limit of 2.86 megabytes in file size, which, by the way, is a huge image. The one I'm going to be demonstrating is about 1.5 meg, so it's still pretty fat. As a matter of fact, that's this guy right here. And this guy right here is about 3,000 pixels wide, and it's being scrunched down to about 600 pixels wide through the use of WordPress. So you're really taxing the use of WordPress and your visitor's browser if you do something like this, like a lot of people do. They'll upload a huge image into their WordPress media section, and then knowing that WordPress can scrunch it all down for them, they'll leave it at that. Well, it still has to load that full 3,000 pixel width image into your visitor's browser before it scrunches it down. So again, it's adding that extra load time, using a ton of bandwidth. That's just a total waste. So let's go ahead and use this free tool to knock the file size down. We'll tackle the dimensions here in just a second. But you can either use the URL of the image or just select it from your computer, and that's what I'm going to do here. And that's the one that's on my post, but this is the one I'm going to go ahead and scrunch down, because this one's 1.5 meg. And this one here, as I hover over it, you'll see it's about 2.69 megabytes, and that's pushing it as far as the limit that Dynamic Drive will take. So just to be on the safe side, we'll take this guy here. Just select, open, and right here, I want to leave it as the same input type, but I want to show all results. Click on Optimize, and depending upon the size of the image will depend on how long it takes to actually finish this, but through the magic of video editing, this won't take very long at all. And here we go. And as it's shown here, the original, that's this guy right at the top, is 1.4 megabytes. Yeah, let's round up, 1.5 megabytes. And if we come on down to the next image that it's scrunched down by 25%, you really can't tell much of the difference between the two, except this one here, your browser is going to be pretty happy because it's been reduced by 25%. Let's go ahead and scroll on down even further. And frankly, this looks pretty crisp. And this one is 307 kilobytes, a reduction of 79%. Your browser is going to be ecstatic. And frankly, this is still pretty darn detailed. So depending upon the actual end quality you're looking for in your posted images, like if you're not a photography blog, then something like this, or even scrolling on down further, 89%. Yeah, that's getting a little pixelated, so that's a little bit too much for my taste. But this one here might do just fine, and that is 244K, a reduction of 84%. So anyway, you can see that with this free online tool, you've got a host of different ranges that you can work with that will reduce your file size immensely. And not only are you reducing the load time, but also you're saving a ton of bandwidth, which in some cases can equate to a savings of money at the end of each month. Okay, so that's the file size. As far as the actual image dimensions, it really should not be left up to WordPress to do the reduction for you if you can do it off-site, and you can. For example, right here, depending upon your theme, the maximum width of your content area may be somewhere between 600 pixels, which is about the case with this one, to maybe 900, even 1,000 pixels in width if you're not using a sidebar. So having an image 3,000 pixels wide is just a waste, because again, the entire image, the entire original image, has to be loaded into your visitor's browser before WordPress can go to work at reducing it to the size that will fit into the content area of that particular theme. So reduce the size before you actually upload it. That's the offsite stuff. Now, if you've already got a whole bunch of these images on your site and you don't want to go to the trouble of logging on to an FTP client, downloading all these images, doing the file reduction and the dimension reduction offsite, and then re-uploading them, overwriting those files that are on your server already, which would be the case. And if you only have a few images, then that would be an ideal situation. But if that's something that's just not doable for you because you just have so many images, then what you can do is try a plugin that will do a lot of that work for you. Two of them that I'm going to suggest. One of them is WP Smush It. Got to be careful how I pronounce that. And another one is Insanity. That's I-M Sanity, not Insanity. Both of these, once installed and activated on your WordPress site, will do a bulk reduction of file size and dimensions, which will take a lot of that stress off of your visitor's browser when trying to load that huge image that you already have on your site. But where these might only reduce the overall size, both file and dimensions, by maybe 6 or 7 or maybe even 8%. Remember, with the dynamic drive, these guys are doing it upwards of 79 to 85%. So again, ideally, the best way is the offsite and then upload to your site. But if that's just not an option for you, then let's head on over to plugins. I'll demonstrate the use of this guy right here, WP Smush It. Now, they both do the same thing as far as bulk reduction, but with WP Smush It, it does have a limit of 1 megabyte. So if you have a lot of images that are in excess of 1 megabyte, then you might want to try Insanity. Let's go ahead and install this guy right here by going to the dashboard of our WordPress site, come up to Plugins, go to Add New, type in here WP Smush It, click on Search Plugins, check out the details if you want to, or just click on Install Now. Click on OK, click on Activate, and here it is right here. Now you come on up here to the media link, and right here you've got Bulk Smush It, or you can just come into the library if you want to do just 1 or 2 images by activating that plugin. Over here on the far right of each one of your images, you have a new option called Smush It. And if there's no savings, then it'll tell you right here. Or if you want to just try to smush it even further, then you have that option. And you can see here that these two are in excess of the limitation that Smush It has, so you're not able to use that. And by the way, WP Smush It is part of the Yahoo developer tool Smush It. So if you are familiar with using the Yahoo tool Smush It, then you're kind of familiar with how this works. Same process. But let's head on back over here to Bulk Smush It. Just click on that. Just read this stuff here. And by the way, it's a good idea before you do any of this stuff, whether you're using WP Smush It or Insanity, that before you run the images through that plugin, you want to do a full backup of both your files and your database. That way, in case you're not happy with the end result after you do the reduction in file size and dimensions, then you can just nix the whole thing, reinstall things from your backup, and you're back to where you were before you installed the plugin. Let's go ahead and run all images through WP Smush It right now. Let's click that. And of course, depending upon how many images you have will depend on how long this takes. And you can see here the reduction size and percentage-wise is nothing compared to that of the dynamic drive option, but still, every little bit helps. And that's an example of how you can do an on-site reduction versus the off-site reduction. But from this point on, you should always try to do the off-site reduction first before you upload the images to your site. That's going to bring us to the end of this video on optimizing images for your WordPress site. Thanks for watching, and you have a great day.